Welcome to the Textile Skills Conference. I was asked to pre-record something for you. My name is Ross Studd. I worked in industry for quite some time. I've been in education now 16, 17 years. Always working in different areas because my background is industry and then marketing and then education. But I've trained in schools, taught at university, taught in college, taught my own classes, and then formed Repair What You Wear when COVID struck. I've got a lot of textile knowledge. You're welcome to get in touch with us. I hope you get something out of this presentation. And Ellie and I are on repairwhatyouwear@gmail.com. We will do training for you and we can liaise with you to further knowledge. So welcome and hope you get something out of this. Thanks. Bye. Welcome to the Textile Conference. We're going to have a look at what we think is the most important element for teaching for sustainability. This is the most motivating video that we find. We tend to start off with it.
The goods that are coming now is really affecting our business.
Hey, they want to have a long people. I'm not sure which way I'm going to go. Not a doing it.
This is a major graveyard for fast fashion waste. Years of dumping Western cast-offs and plastics have created this environmental nightmare.
You can't take it out. You have to dig. It's buried. It's stuck. Wow. Some of these clothes are polyester and I would say synthetic fabrics. That also go into the waterway and chokes the fish and the marine life in there. The fashion industry actually loses $500 billion a year due to fashion.
So what they say is it loses $500 billion a year due to fashion waste, which is just a phenomenal amount. The industry obviously needs to change and desires to change. And so we know that it's responsible for a very high amount of greenhouse gases, between 4 and 10%. It's definitely within the top 5 most polluting industries. Some say the second most polluting. And this is the stat that is a bit scary. In 2018, the McKinsey report estimated that the current level of fashion greenhouse gas emissions was double what it needed to reach the 1.5 degree target for climate change by 2030. And without best efforts in 2030, it's going to be double what it needs to be still. So we need to look at what those efforts should be, because we have to train up our students so that they're informed before they start their studies, really. It also produces a lot of water pollution, and this has been going on forever. But when I worked in Italy many, many years ago, it was the Italian waters that were blue, but the volume was much, much smaller. Then obviously legislation came in developed countries, and we exported our problem to countries where there's less legislation. This is a river in Africa last October. And what's important to realise is that the greenhouse gas emissions are created in the making of the clothes predominantly. And that is a surprise to many, but it does mean that clothes need to be worn to mitigate, offset the greenhouse carbon gas emissions, and that the longer garments are worn, so just doubling the wear of the life reduces the emissions. That's why we set up Repair What You Wear. That's why we are trying to distribute in society hand mending skills, which have virtually disappeared, because it's one element of keeping clothing going. But we also try and concentrate on delivering knowledge. This is the circular economy as it's going forward. You'll find many elements to it. It's very complex. We chose this as one of the simpler ways of looking at it. What's ringed in orange is what we use when we're talking in climate cafes and things. The fibre is really important. We're going to look at that in more depth. Textile production is also very important because a lot of the greenhouse gases emissions are in the making of the clothes, but also in the styling of the clothes. This is an introduction to zero waste design, because if you design out the waste, then you're eliminating part of the problem. It also intellectually is a very interesting and creative way of rethinking. So it's a reframing opportunity. You can see that the garment on the left, a pair of trousers, has been redesigned to incorporate all fabric, no waste, under the zero waste design policy. And I can send you the link to this this great organisation. They run courses on designing zero waste patterns and thinking and learning about zero waste, because statistically, majority of it ends up in landfill. I mean, that's the thing about textiles, isn't it? There is no such thing as a way. 12% globally is downcycled into something, under 1% is made into clothing, and the rest is just landfill. The work that Ellen MacArthur's doing, Ellen MacArthur Foundation, is very valuable. And the examples that you can get on their page here are fantastic to look at. So this shows what the industry is doing. Tommy Hilfiger 2 years ago said that they were going to be circular within 10 years. Seemed a long time at the time. And H&M have always thought of themselves as leading the field, but they get quite a lot of criticism for greenwashing. So this is a very good place to go to have a look at what is happening. They also have a connection. They've got a vocational qualification, Daydream Believers, which explores creative thinking solutions, which you may find useful. So in our view, what you need to consider in core sustainability education in textiles is the fibre source and the function. That's absolutely key. The textile production you can consider, it's all about the dyestuffs, the effluents, the processing, the type of energy that's used in that processing, and the effluent and what goes out. But if your students go into the design industry, the only way they will be able to influence that is working for companies that are committed to that, but also designing in the different the standards that have to be met in manufacture. And that's the same with the apparel manufacture. Repair, that's a very important angle. Obviously, we're committed to that. But the business of repair is going to be 23.5% of future fashion business. And it's all about anticipating problems and having a relationship with the people you sell to. So they either return the goods to you so you have control over end of life, or it's about manufacturing in a repair agreement. Now, in my view, if there is going to be common repair problems, they should be anticipated and you should design them out. But as any form of additional handling after sale is a cost, then you also need to identify what might happen or what you can anticipate in terms of repair, and cost that in at the beginning and build in that relationship. Reuse is talked about a lot. We don't need many more bags in this world. We need reuse that is truly valuable. And that again can be considered in design. You have to know the market to whom you're selling in the first place, so that design reuse actually has a long life function. End of life obviously is a huge consideration. The majority of that depends upon the fibres and the way in which the garment was constructed. So we were very pleased with this little statement by Luciane Tonti, who's a good reporter, that designers are believing that impact starts at fibre now, whereas when we started Repair What You Wear 3 years ago, it was less shouted about. And so many textiles are being looked into. There's a lot of talk about particularly fake leathers, because an alternative normally is pleather, which, as you know, is synthetic. And students can get very excited about these alternatives. I have to emphasize they're very small volume, and majority of them need PVC topping to make them work. So they are not actually as environmentally friendly as you think. The most exciting development appears to be the biopolymer, chitosan, which is shrimp shells. But this doesn't cover our volume, because the truth is that the majority of clothing is now synthetic. It's very useful because it's cheap. You can manufacture it to function. In a world which is attempting to see beyond oil, this is going to be a problem unless we learn about it and develop alternatives. And we also use it for function. Your students will know about the how polyesters and various other synthetics are made. They can be designed to use. They can be high loft for insulating padded jackets, or they can be microfibers. It's important that they understand this and they experience it and experiment with it, because it then helps them design appropriately with it. There's a lot of talk about recycled polyester, and we have a problem with plastic bottles. Therefore, investing in the reuse of these bottles gets rid of a landfill problem, because we have no other solution. It's high in energy consumption making the yarn out of plastic bottles. It's not a nice process, and you end up with something that is a recycled fibre, but the truth is that that garment has to be worn for a long, long time, because otherwise that garment goes into landfill. It can't be recycled. Cotton is a fantastic fibre, as we all know. It's got qualities that people love, especially in t-shirts. It's breathable, it's got a texture to it, it's highly absorbent, it's non-static. It's not hugely popular in fashion, it's popular in creative expression, and that's important. But if we're talking about clothing design, then usually it's mixed. It can be, when you want drape, mixed with other fibres. But the thing about cotton is it's very damaging right at the beginning, quite apart from the 20% indentured labour. There's all sorts of stats, like it takes 2,700 litres to make one t-shirt. And that has been around since 2009. That was a World Wildlife Statement in 2009. And yet it's only now, really, that students that we talk to are shocked by it. These things have not made headlines. What we have is a production countries, as you can see on the right. Very often they have low waterfall themselves. And so what is very important, quite apart from going organic for the global pesticide and insecticide reduction, is that the organic cotton, understanding that it's the crop rotation which protects the soil. Therefore, not only is it beneficial, as we understand organic normally to be, but it is also efficient because it's less irrigation. I think the cotton choice, the cotton awareness is rising. BCI, which is a Better Cotton Initiative, is now in almost all cotton products from Marks and Spencer's. It's often, however, cotton is mixed with modal to soften it and make it lighter in washing and things. But cotton has a future, but it depends what we design it into, because it doesn't drape very well. Cellulosic fibres are one of the areas the public really isn't conscious of. We're all going around in those floaty dresses and skirts, and it's gone up from being 70 million trees felled in 2019 to 200 million last year, and anticipated to be 300 million this coming year. And that's just to make our clothes. And it's a terrible, terrible area. It could be, I have to say though, that the trees are felled for beef production, for instance, and they're sold into acetate and viscose production. But they're still felled, and the demand is there. What people don't understand is that unless the trees come from a protected source, and unless they're processed by factories that have completely circular modules, it's not good for the environment. However, it is good for the environment when that process does take place, and you will all be aware of that, because this will be part of, this is part of the GCSE curriculum. What's important is to see why it's used in production. It's not nearly as good in art, so I doubt whether your students will be experimenting with it. It's not a strong fibre on its own, so if you buy cellulosic fashion, you'll find that the garments don't wear well, they don't wash well. So really, it's something that needs to be combined with other cloths to be efficient. I'm going to skip here a minute. I'll go back. There's a very, very good organisation called Canopy. I don't know whether you follow them, but they are working with cellulosic fashion to make change. And this is worth watching.
Commercial scale mill, and it's incredibly exciting because this is the world's first next-gen mill for the fashion industry. This mill takes textiles and turns it into pulp that is then made into next season's clothing. In doing so, it helps prevent 200 million trees being logged. So this mill is the start of the next-gen revolution.
In the end, we need to take care of what was once produced. We cannot just keep on using more and more of the planet's resources. So once we already produce these fibers, we can use them all over again. So circularity is an important factor in the whole change towards sustainability. And of course, we also want to have, the forest standing. We want to have real forest, and that's also important. The brand reception has been great, actually. We're looking at big brands like H&M and Inditex, and we also have Levi's, of course, and Bestseller, and we're launching with new brands, almost every week now. And of course, they have made their commitments to become circular. Some brands have said they're going to be there by 2025, others by 2030, and some in the between. But the solutions are lacking. We're trying to help them out to achieve their commitments and to make good on their promises to.
So the point he's making is quite right, that it's difficult to get these companies to fulfill their promises in fashion. It's possible that Renewcell will be extracting the cellulose, extracting the fibres. They're turning it into cellulosic cloth, as you saw. Cellulosic sheets, as you saw, for further development into products. But it's a very, very small part. However, it's a very exciting development for students coming out of school education and into further education. The more they know about fundamental fibres, the more innovative they can be, the greater the leadership, the more sustainable the business, which is where we need to be heading. I wanted to go back to bamboo because bamboo's had a lot of press. It's very lovely in underwear. It's a little bit slimy possibly, but it's breathable. It's got an elasticity. It's natural. It is very good for sportswear. It has all those ingredients that are quite good for fashion. What we have to be careful about is that it is also a monoculture, and it is also cellulosic fibre. So if it's not processed efficiently, then you've still got all those issues. But bamboo is currently still a small growing area, but no one fibre is the solution. Creative thinking of their use is the solution. Wool is, in our view, underused. It's a problem when it comes to veganism. We can't square the circle on that one. It has to be down to individual choice. Wool, there are plenty of studies, though, that show that sheep help maintain should we just call it the countryside or the landscape? Certainly in Scotland, sheep feed in areas where no other animal could survive. But the wool can be quite coarse. So it's great that there's developments now in treatments to make the wool softer, because we find with the students, they love the concept of the wool, but a lot of them won't wear it because A, it shrinks when washing, and that can be a problem because people are so anti-hand washing, and it's too scratchy. They think it's too scratchy. But it keeps us warm naturally, and it biodegrades. It's only 1% of product at the moment, but it has real potential for climate change. Linen is also another area. Any of those bast fabrics, linen, jute, they can be grown in areas where there is a lot of water. But the question is, what do we do with those fibres? We traditionally don't like ironing, and we think of linen as something that doesn't keep its shape, that crinkles. People think of it as a style issue. You can only wear it really when it's fairly cool. Now that might be good as our climates change, but we need to be creative as designers about thinking ways we can market its characteristics as truly desirable. And then we can start onshoring some of our growth of product, because it grows very well in very northern hemisphere, and it's also biodegradable. Your students will learn about ethical sourcing. It's important that they keep their eyes open, who's doing what, why they're doing it. Quite a lot of it's greenwashing. They'll have one range that is green and the rest of it will not be. There are new brands coming on board all the time, so this is just a tiny smattering of it. The more they know about the fibres, the more they can see through what is being done. And experimenting with blends is really very important. If they have a core understanding of their fibres, they can understand the structures. They can understand how the structures are going to work in their design. The blends add to the structure and the function, and it's all about that in the future. It's all about structure, function, fibre, because then we can create purposeful clothing that fulfills a sustainability need. We set up Repair What You Wear 3 years ago, and I'll take you through the videos now. We set up during COVID, as we've been planning for a long time to set up, but there was a tremendous interest because we were going back to hand skills. As climate change has become part of our everyday life, I think people are overwhelmed. But I'm going to show you the website to show how we don't have to be overwhelmed. We've created something that's not been done before, which is how to learn basic mending skills. Most people have learned through their family members if they're lucky, through their teachers if they're lucky. It's now a privilege to have learned. But through a lot of experience, we know that if students and individuals learn what we've got on our survival sewing skills, then they can fix most things. And they also have the fine motor skills which can take them forward in their creative projects. So threading a needle, we know our way is best. It's taking the needle to the thread. We've practiced it with people who have real challenges and it works. We do left and right-handed for everything. And teaching sewing on buttons to a group of people who are going to teach others recently. Somebody who'd been sewing for years said, I've learned so much. So it is true that we can go on learning properly, really. And if you give your students a foundation that's based on experience like this, rather than hearsay from an individual in a family, then they're off, really. Backstitch, herringbone, and ladder stitch. Those are the basics they need. We are working currently with primary school. Before we move them on to the survival mending, we've started with binker and embroidery, and it still works. Mostly the boys are really into it. They also love the technical videos on fibres and fabrics and constructions. Everyday Mends gives students ideas and practical ways of using more embroidery or mending specific items. We have uniform mends and sportswear mends, because those are very boring products, mostly synthetic, and they can't go anywhere once they're broken. No one wants them. The educational resources, everything that we've done with you today, we'll be giving you. You can use it as you want, because as long as you include our brand. Just here we've got right and left-handed instructions. I'll show you the right ones on core mending. So we usually have these out on the table or give them to individuals. It creates a multi-sensory approach to acquiring the skills we've talked about in survival mending. We're updating this fashion environment introduction. It'll be very similar to the one I've showed you today. There's there's polyester manipulation ideas. You probably do that already, but this is classroom ready for you. We had a project which we developed where we've matched it to the curriculum. You're welcome to look at that. It's not about creating a beautiful garment. It's about using a garment for exploration, and that garment is already constructed. We're working on this with students in primary on the level 2 to 4. That's what we're doing at the moment. Then you've got all those books to talk about fibre knowledge, but if you want to use what I've written, then they're down here. You're welcome. And then I created a few videos to introduce the students. You can see what it's introducing them to. The only one that we're missing is synthetics, and I should work on that. I'm going to exit now and just sign off for you. Thank you for making it to the end. We're here to support you. Our resources are there. We can organise CPD, and we believe passionately in what we're trying to achieve, and we hope you do too. We hope you got something out of this. Goodbye from myself and from Ellie. Two of us run Repair What You Wear.